world is heading towards a reset, and this reset would impact everyone living on the surface of Earth. The search or a race for a new digital reserve currency is coming to an end. The hegemony of fiat is ending soon. Central banks across the globe were actually preparing in the background. Majority of the central banks leading this race has a connection with Ripple, the company. As you can see, the names highlighted here are Bank of England, Bank of Canada, Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, and it goes on, right? And in an official document, XRP is being called as a supranational currency, whereas Bitcoin is being called as a cryptocurrency. That is significant enough as it is in an official document of digital fiat currency. Now, yes, when we actually go through and read through this article which actually talks about it, it's kind of having a lot of FUD inside, because the author, I believe, does not actually understand what XRP is and how it was actually designed and what it was designed for.
Today, this meeting serves as a launch pad for the next chapter, the Great Reset. We have contributions from His Royal Highness, the Prince of Wales, from UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, from IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva, and from many more in the next hour and a quarter.
They are talking about the Great Reset, which is actually coming towards us. And now, this one is also showing you Great Reset. Now, both are actually fundamentally from the World Economic Forum, but this looks like it is in depth. If you actually play through this video from them, you'll understand the aspects which they are actually looking at. In this Great Reset, they are actually considering a green, sustainable economy which provides equality for a majority and then opportunity for everyone, steering towards a fairer outcome. And they are actually looking clearly about the environment. So we can kind of keep aside this proof of work thing which needs mining and a hell lot of energy. But yes, again I say, the nations which actually produce the oil and all will have this impact when the Western countries or majority of the developed nation will move towards sustainable energy. So they will actually use the oil and other energy from oil and gas for mining Bitcoin and so on, because they need some kind of revenue to flow in, right? Now, this is an article from American Express, and it is showing you dependent. Could a new world digital currency come from Silicon Valley? Now, in the beginning, they are actually talking about Libra itself, based on Facebook and how that was being planned. But what happened to it as the regulators came in, pushed the brakes, blah, blah, blah. But what they're actually looking here is the possibility that Libra or something like it, keep that in mind, might replace national currencies for international transactions has attracted the attention of central banks. So it is kind of, you can say that it is a reserve currency, but it is not actually being used like the current reserve currency. Say, for example, now it is dollar, right? So dollar is actually the currency of one country and it is also the reserve currency. But in the aspect which they are actually proposing this is like this new thing, new currency will be only used for international transactions, and it will be actually done by the central bankers itself. So the central bank has their control. They are not losing their control. They have the control over their monetary policy. The governments around the world can still practice their ideology. Now, the responses to cryptocurrencies and stablecoin are not necessarily about issuing their own digital currencies. Now, this is actually coming from a central banker, okay? The whole discussion is useful and a wake-up call for central banking community. And it makes us understand that we have to go, we have got to be faster and we have to step up, upgrading our payments. So they are looking for something which is 24/7, 365. Now, when we actually come a bit down in the same document, how central banks might create a new world digital currency. Now, when they are talking about this, think it is about the international transactions. That's when we talk about the payments, settlements is a clear thing. Now, this isn't about an organization, Bank for International Settlements. Now, we previously here discussed through documents from Bank of International Settlement and IMF mainly regarding this. And we supplemented that with the World Bank documents as well, right? So here we can read, once all central banks were producing central bank digital currencies and settling domestic payments in them on a real-time 24/7 basis, they could link together so that cross-border payments could also settle instantaneously. Now, keep that in mind, saying in this aspect, you have walled gardens everywhere. The walled garden is everywhere, meaning one country is a walled garden, another country is a walled garden. But the issue where this actually lays out is, say, for example, one country has its own central bank digital currency and the other one has same. Now, that is while looking at the globe in that manner. Now, if we actually zoom in into a particular country, we can actually see within that country, you actually have different corporates coming out and saying, no, we are going to create our own walled garden, Binance coin, JPM coin. In that manner, you'll have different walled gardens. Now, these actually need to be connected to that central bank digital currency, right? If they are to do the transaction in their home country, they need to go through that central bank digital currency, so that they actually need a bridge currency to move from their walled garden coin to the central bank digital currency if everything is going digital in this manner. So the interoperability is coming inside the domestic transactions as well. Now, in the bottom here, for many economists, however, it is like they're talking about Bitcoin here. Supply of Bitcoin makes it impractical as a world reserve currency. They say since the demand would be far higher, Bitcoin would be outstripped. Now, this Bitcoin maxis will actually come out and say, XRP has 100 billion in supply. Why do they need that? Now, this is the actual answer for that, because those who designed XRP had this vision in mind of keeping or making it a reserve currency for the entire globe. I don't know whether you guys actually remember this article or not, but it is still there in Ripple Insights. Yes, it is from back in 2017, but when you actually go to the bottom of it, you can actually remind yourselves this. The simple goal of making XRP the world's reserve digital currency. So what were we actually talking about here? New world digital currency. It is from American Express, and if you see the connection between Ripple and American Express, it's kind of, the cloud is moving it out, right? The cloud just went off because those who are trying to do this has actually connection with Ripple, and they have kind of the same idea. Now, this one article is actually from a different provider. It is just a crypto news, but the perspective laid here is also similar. The race is on to become world's digital reserve currency. So it is about world's digital reserve currency, not about outstripping the fiat currencies like the digital fiats. When they are actually looking at their own digital currencies, say the fiat, digital fiat, they are actually teaming up like this. A group has been formed in order to share experience as they assess the potential cases for central bank digital currency in their home jurisdiction. The body will be made up of Bank of England, Bank of Canada, Bank of Japan, European Central Bank, the Riksbank, and the Swiss National Bank, along with the Bank of International Settlement. Now, if you actually look at that, what is clear here is there is no China, there is no America. Yes, that's okay. But at the same time, the other institutions in this particular group is having direct connection with Ripple, the company. And the next thing here is, like, recently we just saw that Canada as a nation is coming up with better regulatory clarity. They are considering cryptocurrency business as financial services. So that is changing. Bank is a financial service, so automatically they can use the new technology. And at the same time, if you look at Bank of England, we just saw the statement from Bank of England here, right? The Bank of England Governor Carney suggested rather than a single central bank digital currency, central banks could create a network of digital currencies due to development of faster payments. So each country, if they have this, as I said, everyone would be creating their own walled garden. I actually saw this video in which, this particular area which I'm going to play shows the same idea. Like she actually asked a question regarding the same thing what I'm talking here.
Well, that makes sense. Can I just ask one more question? For large corporates like a Facebook or maybe Amazon tomorrow or Alibaba tomorrow, to also introduce their CBDC corporate CBDC version stable coins into the marketplace. So if that's the case, aren't consumer in the street facing with kind of two groups of currency to use? One, central bank and sovereign related. So I can be holding a Chinese version, a Singapore version. On the other hand, I also could be holding on to a Libra and Alibaba version, for instance. And now, which other currency do I use to pay then, for my goods and services or my cross-border services as well?
So if I am to answer that question, I would be answering like this. Say, for example, as we just discussed, every country would be considered as a walled garden. And when we actually go into one particular country, they would have corporates coming out with their own tokens. Now, for the internal transaction, it would be so easy for them. But for a company, they have to pay their staffs. So they have to actually contact, communicate, exchange the value with the bank. So at that particular point, the banks would have their own coin, like say, for example, JPM coin or others. But if the government is actually regulating it, it would be like the company can have their own coin, it's okay, but the value should be transferred through central bank digital currency. And as we just realized from last couple of videos, central banks are not actually going to issue, majority of the central banks are not going to issue their own digital currency. Instead, they will be using a public-private partnership, and they will use a privately issued coin backed by central bank reserve as central bank digital currency, and they would just change the name into synthetic central bank digital currency. Now, if that is the case, then everything is actually okay. Each and every walled gardens will be connected through this particular central bank digital currency in terms of domestic payments. Now, when you actually come towards the cross-border payments, you can actually see that the same issue persists there too, right? When each countries are becoming a walled garden, they need a bridge asset. Now, in this particular case of using this item as a synthetic CBDC, you have an interoperability layer in which this central bank digital currency itself is a bridge asset, right? So you don't actually need to actually go into a different currency and do it. So say, for example, if you have this central bank digital currency, but every banks will be digital, and that will be shown using, say, a digital dollar, digital yuan, or something like that. But the bridge asset here is the synthetic CBDC in that perspective, right? So countries like Sweden, when they are coming out as retail central bank digital currency, say digital krona, right? So they can actually convert it easily into this one directly. So major economies will be actually looking at creating their own walled garden, but if they are using privately issued coins, then this is a possibility. Whether or not they are using privately issued central bank digital currency, or issuing their own retail currency, this issue of interoperability lays there all over the world. Whether you're looking at cross-border payments or just the domestic payment, it is everywhere. So the ILP protocol, in which XRP Ledger is there, it's kind of base for everything in the new Internet of Value era. So when the Great Reset finally happens, this is kind of something you have to look at, because everything should be conducted in a cleaner manner with sustainability in mind. So green economy is not only in terms of financial transaction, but also in terms of, the natural order being balanced. Now, if I'm going to show this and discuss this, don't be confused. I just want to clarify this. In the way I'm looking at this is something really interesting for XRP Ledger itself, because if you understand what David Strauss is saying in my view, it's like they're actually talking like XRP ledger can be used to issue stable coins, but they are not actually looking to do it. Okay, keep that in mind. And at the same time, whatever we discussed, keep that as point A. And now we are actually moving towards point B. In that, point B should be the central bank digital currency, if you imagine like that. So say a stable coin, as named here in the XRP ledger, can become a central bank digital currency. It should be, or it could be, that hybrid or synthetic central bank digital currency collateralized by XRP here. And this, okay, when I say that, keep in mind this new item will be actually backed by entire central bank reserve. So bank A, central bank A would do one, and if you see 50 central banks working with Ripple coming out with the same idea, that is going to be so huge, because say it's happening on XRP ledger. They are doing that stable coin based on their reserves, so that amount is huge. It's not only one central bank, and it would be collateralized in the XRP ledger based on XRP. So that would directly appreciate the price of XRP, because the value or the demand is going so high. Now, yes, this gets a bit confusing, but if you clearly try to understand what he's laying out, now what I understand is like this: we are interested in stable coins issued on XRP ledger, both with counterparties, many of which currently exist, and XRP collateralized, which would require extensive new XRP ledger code. But they are actually looking at it. Now, when they say extensive new XRP ledger code, I would also highlight like this one. This one actually shows like, if you are taking the scale out of 1 to 10, we are still around 2 or 3. So it's like patience is the key, and it can be actually connected back to another statement from Ripple executive Naveen Gupta. He stated this back in 2018 that it can be 5 years, it can be 8 years. So even at that time, we are looking for complete adoption around 2023 to 2026. So that is about complete adoption, right? So that complete adoption, once the complete adoption is here, no one is gonna buy XRP for this price. It's for damn sure. At least for me, that's the understanding what I have. If you are to buy something cheap and make profit, you should be early there. And when you invest in that, obviously others will come and say you're mad, that's not happening. And that's the only way how you make enormous wealth, investing in a technology which is so disruptive. Because once this actually come into place, existing financial system is disrupted. So if you actually see this, if you can imagine this, then that is the way I see it forward. But also keep in mind, once the complete adoption is there after 5 years, it won't be like the price is going in one day up. Till that time, if it is to reach that amount of market cap for XRP, then it will slowly rise in price throughout that time. Now, yes, different market cycle would be playing out, and we need to understand about different market cycle and how it plays out. So if we understand where we are in this market cycle, we are kind of bottoming out, or at least we are kind of end of the cycle. So meaning we are nearing to the start of another cycle, and this cycle could be extensive bull market like what we had in the stock market. It went 10 years straight up, right? But here it can be up to 3 years or 4 years. Right now we are in 2020. It's going to be ending this year by new regulatory clarity, as 2021 is looking at new ISO interoperability layers. I really wanted to provide value for the time of my viewers, so I just removed this request from the beginning and put it inside the entire presentation itself. So now here I'm back. I'm requesting you guys, if you like the content, do hit that like button and the subscribe button along with the bell notification icon, as many are actually stating they are not getting notified about the new videos. So come here, click that all in the bell notification, so you will be notified about all the new updates.